Hey guys, happy Friday. So today I'm gonna do a Friday flip through of my history curriculum that we've been using for 4 years, which is Story of the World. We are right now on volume 4. And every time that I share about Story of the World, I get some questions in the comments or on Instagram, specifically asking how we use certain parts of it or just if I can do an overview. So I did ask on Instagram if anybody had any questions. So I'm gonna do a little Q&A session here before I go into the flip through. So first of all, I will just say that this is the curriculum that I have used with one of my girlfriends. We get together every other Friday and do some of the projects together. But before we started doing that, I did a year of doing this on my own with my kids, and we just saved the projects and the activities for Fridays as well because they're fun projects, but they're a little involved. Sometimes they're baking or crafting. And I just wanted to save those so that we didn't do them in the middle of the week and, just threw our schedule off. So the way that Story of the World works is you read this storybook, and each chapter has usually 2 sub-chapters, sometimes 3. So we just read a chapter a week. So if there's 2 sub-chapters, then we'll read on like Tuesday and Thursday. If there's only 1, we'll just read it one day. If there are 3, we'll split it up somehow. And then in the activity book, there are questions. If you want to do comprehension questions, there's some narration. So if you ask your kids for narration, there are some key points you can kind of be looking for in narration. There's also additional literature that are literature suggestions, and then there are map pages, and in the first 3 books there are coloring pages. I'm a little disappointed this volume 4 doesn't have the coloring pages because my kids loved those. And then there are tons and tons of activity suggestions that correspond with each chapter. So my girlfriend and I get together every other Friday, and we at home will have read 2 chapters before we meet up. So one Friday she'll come here, and then the next Friday we'll go to her house. And what we do is we usually just pick one activity from each chapter. And so if we're at her house, then she facilitates that. If we're at my house, I facilitate it. And it's just like simple projects. For example, last week we were in chapters 2 and 3 from volume 4. And so for chapter 2, we made naan bread, which was part of, reading about the formation of Afghanistan. And then the second project we did was a medical records project, which was just like a photocopy out of this book. And then the kids learned how to take their pulse and their resting heart rate and all of that. And that had to do with the Crimean War, I believe. I can't recall. I think that was the chapter that it went with. So I also have another video on how I do co-op with a friend, and I'll put that up here because I do get asked often if we use a co-op. We are not in a co-op, but I just get together with one friend twice a month to do the projects. And it's fun to get together to do projects. We don't necessarily need to be together to read the book, but it does encourage us to really go more in depth and actually carry out the projects if we're doing it with another family. So there's that. I'm gonna get into the questions here real quick, and then I'll give you a flip through of 3 of the 4 books. My brother is borrowing one of our books, but I didn't want to take that from him for a couple days here because they use it daily. Okay, so I'm just gonna go right through the questions here in order. I might answer a couple of them a couple of times. At what pace do you go through the material? I just answered that I do 1 chapter a week, and then we just do 2 projects a month. And each book has about 42 chapters, so we don't get through one whole book in a year's time, although you totally could, because like I said, some of the chapters just have 1 sub-chapter, so you could totally do 2 chapters in 1 week's time. But for me, that would feel kind of rushed since I do love doing the projects so much, and that wouldn't leave a lot of room to enjoy the projects. What age did you start this program with? Could it work for 1st grade? Totally could work for 1st grade. My now kindergartner really enjoys the projects with us. Last year, he listened to the stories with us and colored the pages. And we do a little history fair every year where the kids pick one region or character that we studied and give a presentation and cook the food. And last year, he wasn't in kindergarten yet, but he wanted to be a part of that. And he was George Washington, and he put together a project board. Little ears are always listening anyway, and the storybook form is pretty captivating, so totally could start it with 1st grade. The projects are great, the coloring pages are great. I would definitely, and what age did we start it? I think Bella was in 2nd grade when we started it, so there's that. Is it suitable for a very sensitive child? We started getting into heavy topics toward the end of last school year when we started getting into slavery. I thought they did a great job without being too graphic, but they were very honest about things. It gives you opportunities to read additional literature suggestions if you want to, and you can go more in depth for certain topics. For example, the Civil War is just one chapter, so we don't spend a bunch of time on the Civil War, but we are going to be pausing and then going into our own Civil War type unit study for a few weeks. So it does give a kind of like a broad overview of every topic, but it does go over every topic. So you would have to decide that for yourself. The first time that I really felt like we hit a heavy subject that was hard to explain was that slavery chapter, but I was able to read it to all of my kids. I left room for their questions and for us to talk through things with some extra time. Do you read each chapter in one setting? Okay, I explained that one already. How do you decide which projects to do for each chapter? That's hard because some of them have some great recipes. Sometimes we'll just do dinner from the projects and not even do it during school because there are really great recipes and there's no need to do that for like lunch. So we'll do that for dinner. Sometimes I don't like any of the 3 projects that are there and I'll get on Pinterest, but that's rare. So usually I just go through and pick the one that's easiest to facilitate for how many kids do I have? Well, basically now that our younger ones want to participate, we pretty much have 8 kids participating between my girlfriend and I. So I just kind of pick one that's easiest to facilitate for that size group. The year that I did it, when she and I weren't doing it together yet, I just picked whichever ones I thought would be most fun for my kids and their ages. So they're pretty simple. Some weeks I need like the less materials, the better. Some weeks, you know, we provide lunch when we're doing the little co-op with my girlfriend. So sometimes I want to do the food ones because that's like kills 2 birds with 1 stone. So just look through and see what I like. We do plan to go through it again when we're done with it. Or at least, you know, for my younger 2, I want to have them go through the books at least once all the way through. So sometimes I'm like, oh, that looks like a fun project, but my kids are too old or my kids are too young. And so I figured, oh, we'll get back through it another time. Do you do a full book in a year? How many chapters a week? So I answered that one. Somebody said another run through, we had to do something different for a different worldview and then put the embarrassed emoji. So sorry that I've offended you with my kids' choices, but my choice as their teacher. Do they keep notebooks? What do you keep? I keep all of their coloring pages, all their map pages, and then I take pictures of the projects that we do. For history, we pretty much put in their essays and pictures of their project boards when we do our end of the year presentations, because my older 2, I have them do a lot of research on their people or their region. Do you use the activity book as a whole or just for certain activities? You'll see what's in there when I do the voiceover and the flip through here, so I'll explain that then. All right, where was I? Do you incorporate narrations in Story of the World? Absolutely. It's a great, I think it's really well written, and it really, it's just written for a great, it's great for my kids' age right now. The story form is awesome, so they've had some great narrations. I don't necessarily use what they're looking for in the narrations, but when we finish a chapter, my kids have had some great narrations. I would love to know what main goals you have when doing this curriculum. I personally think with this curriculum that I have been able to tie together a lot of loose ends from my own education, and I happen to love my experience with history in school. So I just think this is it's rich. My kids are getting a great understanding of, you know, just tying timelines together. So maybe that. All right, sorry, I'm having a little bit of camera trouble today. Where was I? Do you have to tailor it to work for your age gap? Does Eli participate easily? Yes, Eli participates very easily. I do expect to assign Isabella in middle school some of those additional readers, and I did pick my kids, my older 2 kids, independent readers this year based on some of the times we would be in history. But for Eli, straight out of the box kind of curriculum, it's great for his age. No need to supplement anything. It's a great introduction to history. And I only have a couple more questions here. What's a good age grade to start Story of the World? Whenever you want to start history, like I would have totally started it in kindergarten if I had gotten a chance to see it in kindergarten, although I don't necessarily believe you have to have history in kindergarten, but I think it's a gentle approach, and if you want to start in kindergarten, start in kindergarten. If you want to start it in 8th grade, start in 8th grade, by all means. I think it's great all around. Do you use the student workbook? I answered that. I'd love to see how you organize it and do your lesson plans. I don't. I just open the book and read it, and then when it's my turn for history, I look through the projects, so easy peasy. Do your little ones join you, and if so, how? So the coloring pages are great if they want to be at the table. Narrations are awesome. The projects are fun. The map work, that might be for a slightly older range, like maybe 2nd, 3rd grade and up. But yeah, so that was all the questions. I'm gonna flip you around and give you a flip through of the books now. As always, ignore our table. It's not as dirty as it looks. It's just unfinished. We're actually having it sanded and having it sealed here soon, but it's just unfinished wood. But yeah, we've never really dealt with it. So it's been wiped down, it's clean, but it is just stained. In the meantime, this is book 1, and there are 2 questions that didn't make it into my Q&A that I meant to mention while I was sitting there and filming. And those are 2 questions that get asked a lot that I'm just surprised they didn't show up when I asked for the Q&A. One is this a Christian or religious-based curriculum? And the other one is this a Charlotte Mason curriculum? The answer as far as the Charlotte Mason method goes is no. This is a classical curriculum written by Susan Weiss Bauer. So if you're familiar with the classical method, you are familiar with her. However, it can be tailored to fit your needs, I believe, if you are a Charlotte Mason influenced family. Although Simply Charlotte Mason writes a really great history curriculum that combines history, geography, and Bible that I have considered using for middle school for Bella, while also still using this for elementary school for her and my other kids. Technically, that one can be used for all students at once as well, but this one is just so much fun that I just really love using this for elementary school. But don't be surprised if you see the other one, the Simply Charlotte Mason one, pop up in my curriculum choices for my daughter next year in middle school, mostly for the Bible and the geography side of things, like the Bible history. But like I said, we'll still be doing this and assigning her the other extension type reading and projects. So that's the Charlotte Mason answer. Religion-wise, I don't know. I have heard people say it's a Christian curriculum, but from my personal experience, it's not. They presented Jesus in one subchapter, and it was in the context of history. They just presented him like as a man and talked about that's where the Christian curriculum came from. Yeah, the beginning of Christianity 278. So I'll just show you that real quick because they also, in my opinion, they presented like Muhammad and the beginning, of the Islam faith the same way. It seemed very objective and not super, it didn't kind of, let's see here. The birth of Jesus. Yeah, so they just said, here's a story as explained in the Gospel of Luke. Today, many people celebrate the birth of Jesus on December 25th. We call this day Christmas. After Jesus was born, he lived in Judea for 30 years. Then he started to travel around Judea. So they say, so today people call it the Sermon on the Mount. Here are some of the things that Jesus taught. And again, they just reference scripture but they don't state it as truth. They just kind of speak it as they believe that Jesus was the Son of God. Soon these people were called Christians. Really, I don't think that this is a Christian curriculum, which I think is why people don't love this. Personally, I'm not looking for a Christian curriculum. I'm really confident in teaching our theology to our kids. My husband and I both are, and we don't need a curriculum to do that for us. But there are, of course, whenever you're going through history, there are a bunch of jumping points to kind of deviate and go off into whatever you want to teach. But yeah, I mean, my kids got a pretty thorough overview of the Crusades without it being strictly religious based, and of the introduction to the Islam faith and all sorts of other religions are kind of taught the same way in here. So I don't tend to think it leans toward anything, but you guys can let me know in the comments below what you think if you're familiar with this. All right, I'm just gonna do a flip through here so you guys can see. I have 3 of the books here. Like I said, volume 2, I don't have the actual book because my brother's using it, but these are all the same. So I'll just do a quick flip through here. So you've got all the chapters and the sub-chapters listed here. Do I have? No, okay. And these are all the same. So they all, I believe, have 42 chapters. Let me see what I've got. Okay, good. I can't actually show you all this because I've got a bunch of last names written down in there. So yeah, 42. So you'll see the sub-chapter lengths. There's 3, there's 2, there's 3 there. Some of them have just 1. And if you're interested, they're all very similar in length. So I'll kind of flip through to the middle here just to give you. So chapter 9, here's the first, oh, of course, that's one that just has 1. Of course. Okay, let me go to the next one. Okay, chapter 10. So you've got this subchapter. So we would have just read that in one day. And then here's another one. So that would have been all of our reading for the week. Oh, there was a third one in this one. Just to kind of show you, here's chapter 11. You've got this. You've got the second subchapter there, and that would have been each of our readings for the day. Guys, I'm picking all the ones that have 3. Hey, Lydia. Okay, so chapter 12 has this subchapter here, this subchapter here. There we go, that's a better perspective. Chapter 13, one subchapter, and another. That just kind of gives you an overview of how long each of the chapters are. They are all the same. The only differences I have found are in the activity books. So this is what the activity book looks like. You've got all of the information here, and it'll tell you, you've got the student pages in the back of the book, and then you've got the chapter overviews in the beginning. There's tons of info here, photocopy policy, how to use this. There's pronunciation guide, thank you for that. Introduction, and then we've got the chapters listed out here. So every chapter has these cross-references, review questions, narration exercises, and then review questions for the second little subchapter there. Additional history reading, that's what I was talking about, corresponding literature suggestions, and then you've got the map work, which I'll show you in the back. The coloring page, and then here's all the activity projects. So there's quite a few there. Same for chapter 2, same deal. Here's where the activity projects start. So you've got this one, this one, and this one. And this just goes on and on and on. They're all laid out the same way. Some have more activity projects than others. And then the student pages back here, you've got a map page for each chapter, and in the parents guide at the front you have what you say, kind of what you guide them through on these map pages. You've got coloring pages, map page, coloring page, which we photocopy, and then every so often you'll have something like this, which is a student page for certain activities. If you want to do one of the activities that they have listed, sometimes they've got pages back here that you use for the crafts, and then sometimes they just give you a materials list. So, like I said, they're all pretty similar. Oh, there's one more thing in the back I wanted to show you. So once you get past all that, you've got these review cards, which I print on cardstock, and I use these for trivia, narration trivia with the kids when we are all together. Sometimes I'll bring out some of our learning resources buzzers, and we'll use these to help write questions and just do review. You can put them on a binding ring if you want to. The only book that doesn't have that, or at least, let me see if it has it. I think it either doesn't have it or they look different. But the other activity books all have the same shape and kind of the same little narration info. These ones are different shape, and they're just different. So I don't love that they changed it. I'm assuming that this volume 4 was written later than the other 3 volumes. But that changes, and then the other thing that changes in this is that there are no coloring pages, and I don't know if that's just because students are generally older by the time you get to this volume, but it's definitely frustrating if you have younger ones still. Okay, so like I said, the first 3 activity books, volume 1, 2, and 3 are all the same, set up the same way, but then volume 4, it's a little different. So we've got the encyclopedia references, we've got the review questions, and then instead of narration, they have outlines in the student pages, which I'll show you in a minute, which I don't love, but again, like, I don't know if that's part of the classical method because we don't follow the classical method or do CC or anything like that. So you guys will have to let me know your thoughts on that. But I just still have my kids do narration, which again, I wasn't using their narration as my narration. I actually would use the narration from this book as an overview when we would start the next chapter. I would just go back and read their narration to kind of remind my kids where we're at in history. But we do narration and dictation for so much in our homeschool, everything, you know, constantly doing that. So I kind of have an idea of what I want to hear from my kids. And one of my girlfriends will just give her kids key phrases to listen for, and she wants those used in her narrations. And so, you know, you can do it however you want. But so yeah, they have these review questions again, and then another outline, additional history reading, just like the other books, corresponding literature suggestions, the map work right here. So I'll give you more of an up-close look at how they have you teach the map work. You can pause the video if you need to see it. And then you've got the projects here, which are so similar to the other projects. They give you the materials, they give you an overview of how to do it, and that's it. So every one of those are the same as well. Review questions, outline, review questions, additional history reading, yada yada. So yeah, back here you've got the outlines instead of the coloring pages, and then you've got the map pages, map work pages, and then this is a part of, okay. Are these tests? Let me see if there are more of these, because we just started this volume. So chapter 5, there's an outline, the map work, yeah. Interesting. Well, I don't really plan to be using that portion of it because we are doing the Charlotte Mason style exam week, but that's a great option if you guys like to have exams. I think the first 3 volumes actually sell a test guide or, you know, student test book, but we never picked that up because we don't really do traditional multiple choice style tests. So anyway, like I said, book 4 is a little different than the other books, but it can still be done the same way. We're doing it the same way. I'm just getting online and printing my own coloring pages, which I think it's a bummer that they don't have them for this book because I thought they were great, but they do have the outlines, which could also be great, especially, like I said, if you are following the classical method, and that's a big component of it. So yeah, so that is book 4. All right, so that's that. Thank you guys for watching this video. Give this video a thumbs up if you like these how I teach or flip through videos, and let me know if there's any other curriculum or subject you would like me to walk you through. Also, if you guys are interested and you kind of want more about this story of the world and how I do it, I would totally be open to filming kind of how I set up for co-op, or just showing you an overview of planning for when my girlfriend's kids are coming over, but I'm not super comfortable filming, you know, other people's kids doing lessons with us. So I could totally show you the setup. Let me know if that's something that you'd like me to walk you through. I'd have no problem with that. And I will see you guys soon. Bye guys.